It's time for Around the House with Eric G. This is where we talk home improvement each Saturday from noon to 2 p.m. We're going to have a good time today. I want you to join in the conversation, though, because we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff today. We're going to hear my soapbox a little bit. But if you've got a home improvement question out there that you're working on something, I want to hear all about it. 877-733-1011. 877-733-1011. And if you're too shy, don't be afraid. But you can email me at ath@kxl.com. And if you've missed, part of the show today, or you end up missing last week's show where we had Jake from The Wall in here talking outdoor stuff, you can always check us out on iTunes and SoundCloud, which is going to be Around the House with Eric G. Or you can go on your Alexa-enabled device and ask Alexa to play Around the House with Eric G on TuneIn, and then you can get us that way as well. So that's a great way to get a hold of us. Well, welcome to the show. We're going to have a good time talking about, home improvement, and I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit here today because I was, over the holiday weekend here in the week, I was checking out, some of my new shows that I see on the DIY Network, HDTV, FYI, all these different home improvement reality shows. And I'll be honest, I kind of got a little shocked with some of them. There was a show that I watched called Zombie House Flipping, and I'm going to start out by calling these guys out. It's out, I think, on the FYI network. And I don't know if you've seen it. And I also want to get your comments on these too. If I hit one of your special shows that you want to comment on, I'd love to hear it. But here's the thing. I was watching this show, and they're doing the walkthrough. So this is a house flipping show like many of the other house flipping shows that you see on cable television. And what this is they go through these abandoned homes and they flip them and try to make a profit. Well, anybody that's ever done this before, you get to actually see that this is a kind of a hard way to do this, and you can get burned many times doing it. But here's the thing. On the zombie house flipping show, I see him walking through the house and there's signs of termite damage. And the guy goes, oh, no big deal. I'm not worried about that. Well, guess what? This show is filmed in Florida. And if they know termites down there, they know termites. And they know that you can have a house just about get totaled in Florida by termites. So they go a little bit farther into the show. They get going through it. And I'm like, that's weird. They're doing paint samples on a wall. And they've got this big platform 4x8 sheet of plywood built up there with multiple thicknesses of it. And the guy's up there and they're trying to figure out where he is in the ceiling, and he's inspecting it for termite damage in the rafters. I could tell something was amiss, that this was getting very planned and very staged. And sure enough, this guy falls through the ceiling in the show and lands miraculously on this 4-foot high stack of plywood. So he only fell about 3 or 4 feet. Well, then they go to the wide shot as they drag him out, with all this drama, and you can see where the rafters were cut. That's fake television right there, guys. So you got to be careful with some of these shows. They are, and here's my take on this. When you see shows that have really great hosts and really talented hosts, they can kind of hold the show on their own. But some of these, they have to add a bunch of drama into, which makes it very unrealistic. So you're not going to typically go falling through and taking rafters out with you when you fall through the house. So it's something that you got to pay attention to out there on these shows. Generally, when I'm talking about shows like this on these, there's many of them that have what I'd call incorrect budgets. So this is where you got to be careful when you're watching television on these things, because there's some shows that you look at and they're flipping a house for $30,000 and you think they're missing a one where it should be $130,000 because, usually you're right on those things. Now, I do have some favorite shows that I'm going to talk about here that are pretty accurate, that do a really good job of showing numbers. One of them is the shows by Mike Holmes, Holmes on Homes. He does some great stuff. And for Canada, it's filmed in Canada, so you got to take this into account, that when you're doing this, that they have different building codes up in Canada and the U.S. So, for instance, in most cases up there, you don't have to put tar paper down under 3-tab roofing. That's an added benefit up there, is that they think that that's minimum code, says you don't have to have that in many places. So you'll see things like that, which is going to be different than what you see here in the U.S. But they're really good at putting budgets together and showing you what that project's going to cost. Even Fixer Upper, Chip and Joanna Gaines, they do a really good job of putting some budgets together that look fairly realistic. And again, they're down in Texas, so they've got their stuff there. But that's, when they're talking about a $200,000 remodel, it looks like they're generally doing a $200,000 remodel. And so those are kind of nice things to see. I want to get you in the conversation, though, here. So 877-733-1011. Phone number's here, 877-733-1011. So anyway, I was watching through this zombie house flipping show, and it was pretty rough. I ended up not making it through the entire show. But again, when you're talking about numbers on these things, you've got to be careful when you try to relate TV shows to your own budget. Most of these house flipping shows, and I'll say most because there are exceptions out there, and there's probably a dozen of them out there on the networks that you see out there from DIY, everything else. It's kind of the new hip thing right now is to have a house flipping show. Be careful. Those budget numbers many times are not great examples. So, for instance, here's one of the keys that I'll tell you to pay attention to when you're watching these shows. So if you're watching the Las Vegas flip show that they've got down there, the Vegas house flipping show, and I think that's on HDTV. When you're watching that show, be careful because watch for product placements. So the one I saw that was on earlier today, that was on, and they walked into Walker Zanger Tile. I love Walker Zanger Tile. It's great high-end tile. Most people are never going to use Walker Zanger in a house flip under $1 million for a home. It's just not practical. However, they're sponsoring the show and they're giving them free stuff. But the problem is when you're watching many of these shows, and if you see product placement in almost every case, except for a couple that I've mentioned, those numbers are not going to show up in the budget price. So if you see the Whirlpool truck or the Craft-Made truck, take those numbers out of the budget because all of a sudden you can have the tile, the cabinetry, the flooring, the appliances. All of a sudden, all these things are donated, and they're part of the advertising package for the show. Problem is that it doesn't show up in the budget on it because it was given to the show. And so when they say, hey, we only spent $50,000 to remodel this project, you're right. They only spent $50,000 to remodel this project. The big problem is that's not in your budget. So if you think that you can do that same thing for $50,000, no, you probably should add another 50 to it because all of a sudden you had $50,000 worth of stuff donated. And that's going to really mess with your budget numbers. So we're going to go through here in the show and really dive into some of these shows to be careful with, what to watch out for when you're watching these things. And I got a couple shows, and one of them is a client of mine that I designed his house, or the company that I owned in Seattle. We designed out a room in his house. And I'm going to call him out a little bit today on this one because I'm just not going to let that fly when you're not following building codes and stuff. 877-733-1011. We'll talk about that just as soon as Around the House returns.
Oh, this old house is getting shaken. This old house is getting old. This old house has seen the rain. This old house has seen...
This is Around the House with Eric G. Call with your home question now at 1-877-733-1011.
Your foundation is scary. It is. Many companies know it. They use that fear to pressure into purchasing a basement system you might not need, or even worse, might even cause more damage to your deteriorating foundation. You don't want to catch the water after it enters your home. You want to stop it from even getting there. Hey, it's Eric G. with Around the House. The integrity of your foundation is a specialty of my friends at Western Construction Systems. Don't be terrified by an estimate from another foundation contractor. You won't find high-pressure sales tactics, but you will find honest and reasonable solutions for your foundation issues. Their team of experts specialize in basement waterproofing, foundation repair, drainage solutions, and, of course, earthquake retrofitting. They can even now earthquake retrofit terracotta, brick, or concrete block foundations. Go to westernconstructionsystems.com, check your KXL station app, or call 503-362-5052. Tell them Eric G sent you and save $200. So check out my choice for foundation repair at westernconstructionsystems.com. Oregon CCB number 94222.
Driving down the highway, going to a show, stopping on the byway, playing rock and roll, getting loud, getting stoned,
with Eric G. Welcome to the afternoon of home improvement here from noon to 2, where we have a lot of fun helping you get down the right path to getting that project finished up. 877-733-1011. I don't care if you're talking about fixing that fence or fighting the ants, whatever you're dealing with out there. Give us a call. I'm here to help. 877-733-1011. Quick note, Western Construction Systems is a cracked or crumbling foundation killing your real estate deal. For a free inspection, contact Western Construction Systems. The integrity of your foundation is their specialty, guaranteed. And that's CCB number 94222. Thanks, Western Construction Systems. Well, we've been talking home improvement television, which for many people out there is a love-hate relationship. So many people love it. So many people love the reality, and I'm using air quotes that you can't see in the studio here, but it is reality television, which means, well, sometimes the reality is slightly augmented or, well, just plain acting. Sometimes even bad acting. You know, I was reading a story here in House Beautiful magazine, which was kind of interesting. You know, we were talking last segment a little bit about that A&E show, Flipping Vegas, where they go through. And that's an interesting one as well, because that show there is kind of based around, of course, flipping a home in Las Vegas, which is a big, metro area for house flips. There's a lot of that. But the problem is that show is built many times around, like that one, their own seminars, which they go out and make their big money on selling people how to flip homes. So you got to be careful with some of these things, because sometimes these shows, they're shows, but really they are just kind of a pitch for their other flipping business where they go around and sell seminars. So when you do those kind of things, that's one of those things you got to be a little bit careful with, is watching that to make sure that you're just not getting sucked into some other kind of multi-level marketing campaign or any kind of a house flipping seminar, because so many of these people have done that over the years, where they've taken their flip show and they do that for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And then they turn it into something else, which is actually their main business plan. And ironically, I know a lot of people in this business. There's a lot of great people out there that are working in home improvement television, and they work hard at it. But you know something? Unless you're Chip and Joanna Gaines or a few of these other people out there, you're not making a ton of money, because I tell you what, I know people that were making $500 a day doing primetime television on home improvement. So it takes a lot of passion, a lot of patience. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it. Hey, let's jump out here to Kevin in Salem. Welcome to Around the House.
Yeah, good afternoon, Eric. Love your show.
Thanks,
hey,
man.
I've got a question for you, because I've got some differing answers that have been thrown at me. Okay.
Sure.
My wife and I bought a house back in July of 14, and the house was built in 06. So
Okay.
the house, I mean, to say the least, it's newer.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out that the siding that they used on the house was part of a class action lawsuit. It's the Certainty brand.
Okay.
Okay? Now, I've got differing opinions on how the lawsuit's handled, because I've been told that when you submit the claim, the only thing that you can get potentially from the lawsuit is the cost of replacing the siding.
Very true in most cases.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, most cases that's what they do. Yeah, unless that. Here's the difference: if you had came through and paid a contractor to do a siding replacement on the house, for instance, and you were the original purchaser of it, sometimes I've seen them go through where they will pay to have it replaced. But when it's a new house like that and you're a second or third owner, most of the time all you're getting is materials out of that.
Okay, that's what I needed to know, because it's 3,100 square foot house, so we're talking a lot of siding.
It's a lot of siding. What's it doing on it? Is this a cement product, or is it more of that kind of the LP type stuff where it was the chipboard?
It's from what I know, it is a cement type product. It's the Certainty brand, and then what it's been known to do, and it really has shown itself with the dry weather we've had, particularly the south side of my house, because my neighbor's house is a good distance away.
Sure.
So in the wintertime, the south side of my house just gets beat all to heck with rain, right?
Yeah.
And so it gets driven in everywhere. And so what happens is that siding has been known to get a wave to it.
Yep.
And it's been known to crack. And then the other thing that it's been known to do is shrink. And I've really noticed that with the dry weather we've had. I went out and looked at it last night, I've got gaps that have basically tripled and quadrupled in size from what they were 2 months ago.
Exactly. Now, you will see, even with some of the newer sidings, though, one thing to keep in mind when you have that replaced is I've seen people that even with class actions like this, where they'll go in and just replace the weathered side, for instance, and the protected side is visually doing fine. But one thing that I've noticed that you're seeing with the new versions of the concrete based products, when they're installing it, you're not seeing them caulk those seams anymore. They're actually using that dry seam now. And so you're not seeing that happen, which actually does look better because that caulking always tears out and ends up looking horrible. So it actually gives it a chance to move around a little bit more. And if they install it correctly, it'll also keep some of those waves down as well when those things expand and end up looking like a poorly installed, hardwood floor that's got the wave in it, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah, the siding that's on the house currently doesn't have the caulking, and that's why, and I'm not a fan of it. I mean, it's got that little metal flashing behind it, like I was told is the standard.
Yep.
There in the seam, and they said that's a good thing to see. And so, but yeah, I mean, just that joint, because the siding is dried out.
Yep.
The joint is just, like I said, it's darn near quadruples in size in a few cases. So
here's what I would do. I'd get on the phone with Certainteed and just have a chat with them just to make sure that you've got all the right information on that. Because, again, each one of these class action lawsuits has different they've got different proposals and stuff out there with settlements, and so sometimes these things end up being differently, and they might have a program for you as well. I've seen that happen with sometimes with building materials. So I'd get a hold of their customer service on Monday morning and give them a call and just double check to make sure that you're on the right information.
Okay, will do. Thanks for your time.
Hey, Kevin, thanks for listening to Around the House. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's one of those things with siding here in the Northwest. We, with our weather changes, it ends up being kind of a mess when they don't last. I had a house when I lived up in, I was living in Gig Harbor that had the LP siding, and it was the LP siding that was included in, and not all LP siding was included in that big lawsuit. But in that class action lawsuit, I had LP siding that was failing, and it was blowing up. It was not installed correctly. It was a product that was not, on the weathered side, was not holding up really well. And yeah, it failed and turned into mush, basically, and was coming all apart. So there's a lot of those different things out there. And in the Northwest, it's not just the sun, it's the rain, it's the snow. You get all those things out there that are beating on this stuff. So again, it's something you just got to be careful with out there. But like I was saying, with any class action lawsuit on there, I'd get a hold of the customer service. I don't care if you're talking LP siding or cadet heaters. Do a little research and double check it all. When we come back, we'll be talking more DIY HDTV television just as soon as Around the House returns. CCB 54495. Hey, it's Eric G with Around the House. Summer is here. Are you wanting to gain some space on your property with some natural beauty of a retaining wall? Is that old wall failing? The Wall can help. There are also some great career opportunities at The Wall as they're looking to expand their team. Contact Rick for all the details. Check out their website at buythewall.com and give them a call for a free estimate at 503-735-9255. Visit them online at buythewall.com. That's bythewall.com.
Baby's mad cause you told her that you'd hang some pictures for her. The one she framed from late last spring of you and her in Florida. You're up on the ladder when it shatters into smithereens. She shakes her head, looks at you and says, ain't you good for anything? And you say, every week has a weekend.
Every week has its weekend, and we're smack dab right in the middle of it. Welcome back to Around the House with Eric G. We've been talking home improvement. I've been kind of railing on a little bit of home improvement shows on TV here, and we've been having a good old time here in the studio. This segment Around the House is brought to you by Adair Homes, building quality custom homes throughout the Pacific Northwest for nearly 50 years. Find a design center near you at adairhomes.com, CCB number 593. Well, we've been talking all about these shows, but I want to we lost our caller there. Well, she will come back. We've got to talk here about, I wanted to dive into this one because this is kind of a hot button of mine here today. And I was watching on 4th of July, sitting there hanging out, watching TV, and I see a former client of mine, and he's doing his own home improvement show. And I was kind of surprised because there was part of it which was kind of shocking to me. I don't think that they ended up getting permits on this because they had a structural problem. And this was the show that I was kind of surprised by. This is Anthony, which is Sir Mix-a-Lot. I'm a big fan of his. Great guy. One of the funniest people I've ever met. But he had a show called Sir Mix-a-Lot's House Remix. And it was really fun. He was working on this house that he was flipping. And the problem was that I was watching them and they were putting in a load-bearing wall in the basement. So there was no footing going in underneath this load-bearing wall because it was holding up a beam that was sagging. So that was part of the show. So that became a load-bearing at that point because they were fixing the structure on that. Second of all, it was going down over the top of potentially what was asbestos flooring. And then I watched how they attached it. They took a regular 2x4 and were putting it down, not treated on the concrete. So I saw about 3 different code violations in Washington State right there. And I don't think the way they were fastening it was going to meet code anyway for a structural wall. So there's a lot of little problems with that. And again, this is where I want you to be careful with because this was a flip house that they were doing. And they were doing some amazing technology in this stuff. It was fully wired. It was fully dialed in. But my concern is that when you put a white wood or an untreated wood up against a concrete floor, that concrete is going to, especially here on the western side of the state where there's moisture always in concrete like that moisture is going to suck up right through the middle into that white wood, and it's going to prematurely rot. It's not meant to handle that moisture up against it all the time. So that's why when you're building here in the Northwest, if you're putting something down on concrete, you got to use pressure-treated material. So that wall is going to prematurely fail because it's going to start rotting and you're going to start seeing that problem. So again, these are shows you got to really be careful with. And sorry to call my buddy out on that one, but that was kind of one of those things that you could tell that they had not pulled any permits on because there's not a permit agency in the Northwest that would allow you to do that. So are no sacred cows here, guys. I'm going to call them out as I see them. Now, one of the things that I saw that was really kind of fake, which to me is a fake show, and this is that HGTV Love It or List It. Now, there have been a bunch of different articles that you see on the web by people that have been involved in the show, and I'm reading from Country Living Magazine as my source on this one. Pretty legitimate source. But some of the things that they see is that it's funny. If you're curious about your own show, and this is one way that I've gone and looked at it. So like if you see the house shows where you go out and pick a house, so they take you around to pick one of 3 homes. You know, you'll pick one of those homes. The problem is that if you go fill out the application from the production company, it says you have to have a house in escrow to do it. So that means you're closing on a house, and then they're going to come up with 2 more, and this is a house you've already purchased. So those kind of shows like that, when you see that, that's how those work. They've already got a house purchased. It's getting ready to close, and they're going to pick 2 other ones. Now, here's one that I was really looking through, the Love It or List It, is there's some pretty good accusations on this, that they're out there, like they're taking the Love It or List It, they're building the home, but the problem is people sign up onto these HGTV, DIY Network, all the different network shows out there. They want to get their house remodeled for free. They're looking for something for nothing. The problem is that in many cases, you're releasing all your interest to the production company on this. So they're going to finish this home in many times to what they want for good television, which might not be in your best interest. And this is just the way these things work. They're not out to get you. This isn't a conspiracy or anything, but it's something you got to pay attention to. Now, the problem is that they'll go through and they'll follow these things, and sometimes, depending on the production company, there's some great ones out there. There's some not so great ones out there. So be careful. They might not do things to code because they're in a hurry. They might not do things in the best interest of your home. So you got to be careful with these things. But now what they did on this Love It or List It show is that somebody got really upset with what was done to their house. Second of all, the other homes that they said were the love it or list it, that where they were showing them homes, they were the neighbor's home. It was just next door. House wasn't even for sale. So some of these things end up being staged. And again, just pay a little attention. And my concern is not to sit here and give these guys a hard time with these TV shows. Is what I don't want you to do as a consumer out there, or a homeowner, is to try to base your own remodeling projects around some of these television shows, because they can really cause a little bit of heartache for you. And I deal with this a lot. I will have people call me up, and I'll be working with a remodeler, and I'm the designer for a couple of remodelers out there. And I'll get a phone call up that say, hey, I want to work with this contractor. But guess what, Eric? I really want to do this bathroom model and gut it for $4,000. Not going to happen. I'm sorry. As much as I'd like to tell you that you can do that, and just because Tarek and Christina on their show said they could do it, that's not what you're going to cost you to do it right, and to follow building code. You know, you can spend $7,000 to $10,000 tiling a shower, just the shower, let alone do the rest of it. So that's why when you look online and you take a look at the cost versus value and stuff like that, that a normal hall bathroom is a $20,000 fix to have a 5x8 bathroom renovated. That's just what things cost. The problem is if you want to put in the heated tile seats, you want to put in the rain shower head, you want to have the body sprays, well, now maybe you threw another $5,000 to $10,000 on it, depending what you pick. So you got to be careful with these things, because it can get you in that trap that you really want to do this project, but you can also cut some really bad corners. Because if you're going out and shopping for that contractor that's going to do this project for you, and you say you got a $3,000 budget, that's great. But maybe you're replacing the vanity and the countertop and the faucet. Maybe you're not doing that. If they're coming in and telling you that they can do it for that, you're setting yourself up for a trap, because guess what? There's a high likelihood that guy didn't know what he was bidding, and that you're going to get stuck with a project that's half finished, and you're going to look like you're on Skip Bedell's Catch a Contractor show, because someone's going to leave you hanging. And that's what we don't want out of all this, is to leave you hanging. And now when you're out looking for contractors like this, and again, I'm going to hit this again, jump onto your state's website, because this is going to be one of those things that, in Washington State, Oregon State, wherever you're listening to, almost every state here has their own website to do your research on your contractors out there. You know, I'm not a big fan of the Better Business Bureau. Sorry, you could buy your way out of that. But really what I would do, get a hold of them, give them a phone call. Call them up, because they will tell you what the complaints are. They'll tell you what the complaints are about. They'll tell you if they've been sued. They'll tell you if their insurance is good. And the one last little thing before we go out to break here is I want you to make sure that those employees out there are covered by insurance, to make sure if they fall off that roof that they're paying for it and you're not. When we come back, we'll be diving into more stuff here. 877-733-1011, just as soon as Around the House returns.
More Around the House with Eric G is on the way. So get your questions ready and call in now. 1-877-733-1011 on KXL.
Hey, it's Eric G with Around the House. And you know that I know all about building homes. And you know that I know that getting started down the path to building a custom home can seem overwhelming and maybe impossible. And then finally, you know that I know about quality craftsmanship and what great value means to you and your family. What I know is Adair Homes. They are the most experienced custom home builder in the Pacific Northwest, and they've been building custom quality homes for nearly 50 years. Because of their efficiencies, they pass that great savings on to you, and you won't lose quality. And it's a plus to build equity before you move in. With 14 design center locations throughout the Pacific Northwest, they're ready to serve you. To find your nearest location, team of experts, and for a complimentary consultation, go to AdairHomes.com. That's Adair, ADAIR Homes.com. Make your dream a reality. Adair Homes, your dream within reach. CCB number 593.
You're listening to a Northwest News and Information Weekend on FM News 101 KXL.
To Around the House with Eric G. Wrapping up the last segment of the first hour. we're having fun today. This has been a good show. I'm really enjoying talking about some of my pet peeves here and venting about some of these home improvement shows out there. And here's one thing, and again, it's all in moderation out there with these shows. But there's one more that I kind of want to dive into out there that has been kind of a pet peeve of mine. And I guess the best way to put this is I don't really like it when they try to take a host that has absolutely zero home improvement knowledge and they decide to kind of put them on the spot and show them maybe laying tile. So this Tarek and Christina mess of a show that they've got out there right now, that here's the problem I have with it. They're doing house flips. That's great. They've made some good money on it, and I commend them for that. But she's not really an interior designer, and I can say that as an interior designer. She's not a trained interior designer. She just goes, oh, that's pretty, and calls herself to be an interior designer. But they will show him on that show trying to place tile, and he's setting tile on a shower, and you can tell that he's never touched a piece of tile before because there's not anybody in their right mind that's ever put in tile that would do it that way. And unfortunately, there's not somebody there on the show that's helping him out to make it look like he's even doing the tile right. So some of these things you got to be really careful with that don't take their advice on how to do things. You're actually better off going on and watching some of the YouTube experts out there. When in doubt, if you're sitting there and you're stuck on a project and you're trying to figure out how to lay tile, there are some good YouTube people out there that you can actually go on and really watch. And you can take a look at them. It's pretty easy to sort out the good ones and the bad ones out there. But some of these people out there can be really helpful in getting you started with that, because I tell you what, the wrong advice means you're doing the project over again. And I'm going to make some people a little frustrated with this. When you're dealing with showers, I tell you what, I am a fan, and I'm a really big fan of actually going through and using the newer materials for shower bases and stuff. I don't like doing mud sills anymore. I think that if you get into the Schluter or Weddy systems out there, that I think that you're going to have a more flexible, waterproof system in the long run. And, materials keep getting better and better out there. I've had some really good luck with them over failures that I've seen of people doing mud set pans over the years. And if you watch on TV in California, heck, they're still hot mopping down there where they're literally taking hot tar and pouring it in the inside of a concrete shower base that they've made, and they're waterproofing it that way. So just be a little bit careful. My thing that I want to get across to everyone out there is, most importantly, don't take a lot of advice from these shows on how to do projects, because, again, they might have showed you every step of the way how to do it, but they've edited this for TV. If you look at a half-hour show that's on there, that's only 20 minutes of time tops to get of actual content in there. And you can't really show people how to do things. So keep in mind, they're great guidelines to get a project going, but that's where you want to bring in a professional to do that project right. And that's the key to doing all that. One of the shows that I do like out there that I take a look at, and I'm going to have him back on air again, is Stonehouse Revival. And that's a really good show that's on DIY Network. And it's fascinating to me because here in the Northwest, we don't have a lot of stone homes. We don't have a lot of homes that were built in the 1700s. That just didn't happen out here. So, and if they did, there was something way back when Lewis and Clark were coming through. It's no longer here, or it was made out of logs and they rebuilt it a dozen times since then. So really, it's kind of fascinating to go through and watch those homes be renovated and built. And that's, again, another one of those that I think has a really good, strong budget number that's associated with it. And they've got licensed bonded contractors working through that project. So again, those are things that I think are really smart to base off of. If you're going to watch some of the processes, watch some of these ones. So I'm going to go down the list one more time for everybody out there. I have Stonehouse Revival. I've got Holmes on Holmes. That's a really good quality show. If you want to watch a show, Holmes Makes It Right. All those Mike Holmes shows are really quality stuff. I really like those things because as a person in this profession, I think that they really stand up to the test of time because they give really solid advice and they really go beyond of just meeting that minimum code out there. And again, most of these homes that you're watching on there, they're not really pulling permits on a lot of these home flip shows, which again, these days can get you in a ton of problems. And I mean that because nowadays, if you let's say you build a deck on the back of your house. There are a lot of cities out there, building departments, that can go back off satellite photos a bunch of years back and tell you what your deck looked like before. So if somebody calls you out on not pulling that permit on that back deck, you can get nailed on that, because they can go back and go, wow, you didn't do that in 2000. You didn't have that deck in 2012, but you got it now. Where was your permit? Well, I didn't pull one. Now you get yourself in trouble. And that's one of those things you got to be really careful with these days. It used to be that you could just about do anything out there and get away with it. But now, and we're going to talk about this in the next hour, because this is an important one. There are 5 things that I'm going to talk about in the next hour that if you're out buying a home, that in most cases, and I'm going to say most cases, because most realtors, most bankers, most inspectors, most of these people out there are not catching these things because no one's defined for them to do it. So this is something that you've got to dive in and take a look at. I want to protect you when you're buying a new house. So take a listen to hour number 2. We'll be back right after these messages. Around the House with Eric G.
We have some exciting news about the Around the House podcast. Do you want to be an Around the House insider? Our premium membership gives you early access to the weekend podcast, exclusive access to our back catalog of shows, special email access to me, Eric G, with your own home improvement questions with a priority email address, plus exclusive new shows and extended content. Click down into the podcast show notes for the link to the Around the House insider membership for less than the price of a beer at happy hour. Join me for this limited amount of exclusive members. And thanks for listening to Around the House.